This week, I quietly caught a belief that was forcing me to chase in my business. And when I reprogrammed it, my entire execution strategy changed. If you're tracking this series, please make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you can get my weekly updates. Hi, my name is Ajita. Welcome to my YouTube channel. With over 20 plus years of corporate career experience and with over 7 years of being in business for myself, I'm currently the strategic advisor for elite tech founders and C-suite leaders, upgrading their internal capacity so that they can lead at visionary scale. What I share in this video is my live business building experience. I am not building my business from hustle and grind. Instead, I'm using 3 I's: identity, intuition, inspired action as my principles for building this business. This is my live case study of taking my business from $0 to $4.4 million in 12 months or less using these principles. I'm also sharing with you how I'm applying my epic leadership operating system framework as I build this business. It is the same framework that I use with my clients in helping them upgrade their internal operating system. Week by week, you will see invisible shifts that create visible results. We are right now on week 2. Here's what shifted. I will start first with sharing what are the internal operating system shifts that I've had this week. Overall, this week was extremely positive in terms of what I ended up having as awareness about myself. So let me break it down in the framework that I use, Epic Leadership Operating System, in which E in EPIC stands for Emotional Operating System, P for Physical Operating System, I for Intellectual Operating System, and C for Consciousness Operating System. So this week, in my Emotional Operating System, I experienced extreme pressure because there was a lot of roller coaster in terms of what my mind was inducing into my process of being in this journey, especially when I published my very first YouTube video declaring this particular journey that I'm on and publicly sharing it in my social media channels. It became a big catalyst, or depending on how you look at it, it became an interesting trigger for me in terms of how I was feeling emotionally. So yes, there was a lot of emotional roller coaster experience this past week. And intellectually, I was constantly battling this doomsday scenarios that my mind was throwing at me. Especially after I declared it to the world that this is my journey, I was starting to question, is this even real? Who would do this? Just things that I was saying that others may think. I started asking my own self, which obviously I think is a natural part of us navigating this journey in our own internal operating system. Physically, there were days that I was highly energized and I got a lot of work done, and then there were days when I didn't feel like doing anything. So it was almost like a yo-yo experience with my physical body and the energy as well. I would say the best thing that helped me through this aspect of my emotional pressure that I was feeling, the intellectual, the mind playing doomsday scenarios and body having energies being up and down, what truly helped me through this week was crying. As weird as it sounds, I seem to find a way to regulate my nervous system and really calm myself down when I release the pressure within through crying as my channel or the outlet. And nothing else honestly works for me. My body automatically gets to a threshold and then I'm like, okay, I've just got to cry it all out, and then I feel better. Once I do the emotional release through crying, my mind becomes clearer and then I'm able to think clearly. And the mind has this habit of making something that is so small into a big thing, like I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. And when you are inside that experience, you really don't have the awareness to stop and say, okay, I'm making all this stuff. Somewhere the pattern has to be broken. And I think for me, crying happens to be that pattern break. And once I cry, then I'm like, what was I even crying about? That kind of a reflection happens, which is very powerful. This is kind of what I have found to be the most powerful way to interrupt your the automatic running of your operating system programs, whether it is emotional, whether it is intellectual, or whether it is physical body. Something has to break the pattern. For some people it is exercise, which by the way I've started doing that as well, but for me the most effective solution seems to be crying. So the belief that I caught this week in my own awareness as I was going through this different scenarios in my mind, I realized actually it was an experience with my acupuncturist, where he was talking about how his wife actually felt a lot more calm, and she actually couldn't do much work on the day when he was able to give her a treatment, an acupuncture treatment. And so he was telling me how his wife was like complaining in some sense to say I actually wanted to do work, but it was so calming that I went off to sleep, and so she didn't get any work done. Instantly in my mind, I'm thinking, whoa, it must be so nice for her to have a husband who's working. I'm a single woman. Nobody is working on my behalf. I'm the one who has to get everything done. Right there, that awareness, I caught that belief. I'm like, wow, what an interesting thought or a belief to have, that I am the one that needs to support myself. You see, there's also a hidden identity in there. I am the one to support myself. And once I caught that belief, which is also an identity statement, I realized that that needs to be shifted. So instantly what I did was realizing, taking a bigger, higher awareness, and I said, that's not true, because the entire world, the entire creation, if you look around in nature, everything has been created without other people's intervention. The sun shines on its own, trees grow on their own, river flows on its own, everything is happening on its own. Life by default functions on its own. And that is the awareness that I had to really bring, like a 30 million, 1,000 feet awareness to say, okay, if that is true, that I am to do everything for myself is really not true either, because I'm superly supported by the infinite intelligence that created all these beautiful things around me. I'm supported by the same infinite intelligence. So it is so untrue. It is a lie that I am to do everything for myself and that there's nobody else to do it for me. That is just a lie. And I caught that lie because it didn't feel good. And I said, no, this is not my truth. And I am deciding that now I'm aware on a higher consciousness level. I'm aware that I'm supported by the infinite intelligence. And that made all the difference to move out of that belief to something much more empowering and an empowering identity. And now in terms of physical operating system, I made sure that I exercised or moved my body every single day. I went for a 4-hour dance workshop, which I had a blast dancing and learning new steps. And then I did a 1 hour or 1.5 hour dance class on Saturday. And every day I was in the gym, either doing some type of cardio or strength training. So that has been very, very beneficial to move the energy from a physical body standpoint as well. So now let me summarize what are the big lessons or big takeaways this week for me from an internal operating system awareness shift standpoint. So number one, it is the understanding that this particular point that I'm in my life, in this business building journey that is live telecast to the world in many ways, is a journey of faith in action. What I mean by that is that I don't know, honestly, I can't see yet how am I going to make this happen. I have an offer, I have a target audience that I'm looking at, but the fact that the journey of going from 0 to 4.4 million is seemingly so wide as a gap, and in my logical mind I can't see the path, not right now. And so what really is making me show up every day and every week here to make this journey continue to unfold is what I'm mastering, which is faith in action, which means even though I don't see how it's going to happen, there's a deep knowing that it is already complete. And that knowing is really what I'm tapping into right now. And in the process, my mind is throwing all the, tantrums, if you may, mental chatter tantrums, and throwing a fit about, how is it going to happen? How are you going to make this happen? And so on. But the true mastery that I'm actually experiencing right now is faith in action, which means I can't see the path, yet I know it's done. That is faith in action. The second thing I learned about is applying the law of assumption. So law of assumption, for those of you that is new to this, says that whatever you assume to be true, you attract and you create. So it's a very strong starting point for the journey of anything in creation. So that actually made me realize that what essentially a law of assumption is in my operating system is basically a program that I'm writing to tell my system that this is what you need to be working off of. This is my assumption, so work off of this to create stuff in my reality, right? So the way I see it is like a command, a set of commands I'm giving to my operating system, that these are the commands which is my assumption and go based off of this. And what it actually helped me do is, instead of assuming that I must be the one to go find the clients, I've now shifted my assumption to say my clients will find me. That's my assumption, operating assumption, that clients are going to find me. And that assumption is what I'm calling as my command into my operating system. My subconscious is now being given that command to say, help me get my clients to find me. Instead of me saying, help me find my clients, I'm saying, help my clients find me. That's the assumption that I've shifted. The third thing, discernment. What I've understood is this, is in this week of reflection, is that when I take action towards a particular direction on any aspect of this business building process, if something doesn't move with ease and flow, then that is not my path. Which means if I'm taking steps towards something and if I'm getting blocked for any reason, it's not happening, it is my natural assumption again that it is not meant for me and I don't have to pound the pavement or push through that force or force through that path anymore. So that's deep discernment that has unfolded for me. The big one in many ways is the embodiment. What do I mean by that? The identity embodiment. So every time I'm asking this question for myself, which is, who am I when I'm making this decision? Meaning, which version of me is making this decision? So for example, in this week alone, I've had to make some financial choices, and based on where my bank balance is, it is not easy or a pretty decision for me to make. And so the minute I said this to myself, it is not an easy decision, I paused and I asked, who is saying this? Because the version of me that has done $4.4 million in 12 months or less is not going to look at the bank account and say, it's not a pretty decision, right? She's made it. So this is the contrast that I'm starting to observe, is which version of me is thinking this thought, feeling this feeling, taking this action or making this decision. And that awareness is so powerful, because that is where I know whether I'm already in the end state of that version of me, or I'm still in the current version of me trying to make those decisions and reacting to what is in my reality right now. So the question is, what would my $4.4 million version of me do? That's a very powerful question that I've started asking myself and catching myself when I'm still thinking from the current or the old identity, I should say. The fifth lesson this week has been surrender. And surrender in terms of really letting go, so that when I truly let go, I'm able to, I'm not holding on to needing to know the answers, and the clenching business is not there. And what that has really helped is to open awareness to more intuition. Remember, one of the 3 pillars that I'm working off of is intuition. And your intuitive awareness is not something that shows up when you are stressed. It only shows up when you're relaxed. So surrender is a big part of the process, and what I truly had to surrender, and I'm continuing to learn this, not mastered it by any means, is learning to surrender the how and the when. I don't know the how am I going to get there, and I don't know when I'm going to get there. There is an intention of a path and a outcome, but beyond that, there is nothing in my control. What is in my control is my thoughts, my emotions, my actions, my choices, my decisions, and who I believe I am. Those are all in my control, but the outcome is not. And that is why surrender becomes super important. So that's my 5th lesson for this week. And then the 6th one is awareness, which is awareness of, if I'm looking to be that $4.4 million businesswoman, then I have also got to be ready to be seen by 4.4 million people. Because being seen and being known, because it is inevitable when I'm on this path and I know that outcome is complete, and I'm already live building it with audience here on YouTube. This video, if you're watching this anytime 12 to 18 months from now, this video would have blown up already. I just know it. And if you're watching this 18 months from or 12 months from whenever this video has been published, I'm talking to you right now because it's inevitable, because I've already reached my $4.4 million revenue goal within that time frame. And so it's going to have millions of people watch it. It's just inevitable. And so the question is, am I ready for that level of visibility? And if not, how can I be prepared for that level of visibility? Because that's what brings that outcome. Right now I have to be ready, not when I reach there. Right now I have to be ready, and I am ready for that level of visibility, because that's part of my purpose. So the awareness of being ready to be visible for that number of people, for the message that I have to give, for my journey that I'm sharing, that readiness has to happen now, here, at this moment. And that's why I'm saying this. Last one is the idea of following my joy. So I was contemplating and asking for more clarity on, okay, what is the next best step I can take towards this business outcome? And what became very clear is, when I follow my path of joy, then the process, even though whether it gets results or not, it just becomes a happy experience. Okay, So I asked myself, what is the best path of joy for me to attract my clients? And what became evident is I love to teach, I love to share, I love to talk, which is pretty obvious. So why not take that path? And what came through to me was to do a webinar. And here is where the mind starts to play games. Like webinar, I mean, no elite tech leader or tech founder is going to be looking to join a webinar to know about your services. Immediately the mind came with that negativity. And I said, no, I'm not listening to you. What feels joyful for me is doing a webinar, showing or educating my ideal clients on what their problem is and how I can help them solve it. That's what I decided. And then came the awareness. My clients are hanging out on LinkedIn. They're not on, I mean, they are on Facebook, but that's not where I want to be marketing right now. So LinkedIn, I decided to create a post and I decided to boost that post to reach the audience. And it's all ideas. It's just the idea that came. Create a LinkedIn post that speaks to my audience, boost the post to my relevant audience, link them to the webinar, get them to register and do a webinar. So those were all my internal operating system shifts for this week. And before I go to the outer operating system actions and results and behaviors, I want you to let me know in the comments. Did any of these inner operating shifts resonate for you? Have you experienced any of this? Please let me know in the comments because I would love to hear from you. So now all these inner operating shifts ended up giving some kind of results, of course, in terms of actions that I took and outcomes that I've had in my outer operating system. So let's start with the first one. The first outer shift that I experienced or the action that I took was clarifying my offer. The service, the advisory service that I'm coming up with for the tech founders, it was a very complex offer to begin with. So this week I made this decision to say, you know what, I'm going to really super simplify this because I just want to give them the most palpable transformation as they work with me, and that's going to be what makes this client work with me on a longer term basis. So I simplified the offer, and when I did that, I had this amazing realization that the value behind this offer is almost 4 times, if not more, than what I'm pricing it at. And that's actually a great feeling to have as a product designer or a business person when you're curating a product or a service and you realize the value that you're offering to your client is actually way, way more than 4 or 5 times more than what it is actually priced at. It's a great feeling to have. So I'm really celebrating that. And also the fact that I decided, instead of going across 2 different audiences, which is tech founders and C-suite leaders, they have a different they're kind of different avatars, client avatars. So I decided to narrow down on tech founders for this particular starting point of the journey. And so that's also a win in terms of gaining that clarity. Then the second action that I took was, when I finished last week's video, I mentioned about having 2 or 3 conversations. So the good news is I did have 3 conversations this past week. 2 of them were not with my ideal clients, but I was able to put an ask in their mind about keeping me in mind as they're talking to other people in their network, and whoever comes to awareness to be referred to me to do so. And the third conversation that I had was actually with one of my past clients who was also a C-suite leader, CTO. And it was a great conversation because I got so much of insight from his point of view on where he thinks the industry is headed and what, how the resonance for my offer will be and where the gaps may be and things like that. And he also was very generous to refer me to his contacts and network, which he has also done in the past. So I'm very grateful for that. That's as far as the conversations go. And the third thing was a big breakthrough in terms of awareness of what I needed to take as practical action. So remember I talked about the LinkedIn post webinar idea that was about following my joy. So I took action on that. I had this idea come to me, I think on Friday last week, and or Thursday probably. And by Saturday, the webinar entire technology was done. I had built the whole webinar funnel. I created the LinkedIn post. I found a picture that was, my picture that was most apt for that particular post. And I did all of that, and on February 22nd, which was Saturday, at 2:22 p.m. Eastern, I published the post and I boosted it to the audience that I selected. And within, I think about an hour or so, I had 2 founders connect with me on LinkedIn. That's a win. I'm celebrating it because from the time I got the idea to the time I took action and implemented, it was fast. However, where I am right now, as I'm recording this video on Tuesday, is there have not been any webinar registrations up until now. But the beauty of this is this: since I'm embodying the identity of the person who has already accomplished the $4.4 million in 12 months or less, I said, it doesn't matter. Even if nobody shows up for that webinar, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the entire recording as if I'm talking to millions of people, and I'm going to keep it ready to post it into my website. Why? Because as someone who has accomplished the outcome, I also want to be making it easy in terms of the process for my ideal clients. When they decide to talk to me, I want them to review this webinar content, because this is going to educate them on their problem and how my solution fits it in solving their problem, and how I can help them get to that scaled level of their visionary scale of their business. So that's why I've decided, no matter what, I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm simply going to commit to something that I've committed to, which is conducting a webinar next Monday. And I'm going to flow through this process, get the video out, and get it uploaded into one of my landing pages or a website, so that it's available as I may use it for my future prospects to review before they get on a call with me. I think that has been also a big mindset shift. It was not easy as I'm making it sound. It was not easy, because my mind was giving me such a hard time about this entire process of so what if nobody shows up? Why are you putting this idea? Why you kind of get the idea how this functions. So all that inner operating shift I talked about in the beginning has really played its role in getting me to this place of publishing this webinar. The one thing that I didn't talk about is an action that I took that was not part of my plan for this week. And that is starting to write my book, my very first book. That was not part of the plan for this week, and it came in my path because I am part of a mentorship program with the author called Neil Donald Walsh. I don't know how many of you have heard of him. He is the author of the book series called Conversations with God. And the beauty about this is the book came to me in 2016. Somebody gave it to me, but I had I wasn't even aware of it until 2021. Literally 5 years ago, this particular day, I remember picking that book up. As I was working out, the book was calling me. I picked it up and I never put it down. And I started reading all the other books in the series. And here you go, 5 years later, I had the opportunity to meet with the author one-on-one in his mentorship program. And he asked me, have you written your book yet? And I said no. And that's where this whole process started. And so my book has a deadline right now to be completed in terms of writing by August 14th of this year. So as I'm going through this journey, I'm also going to be talking about how my book is evolving. And since Friday, when I had this meeting, to now Tuesday, I've already written 20 minutes each day, and 3 chapters are complete at the moment. And I'm celebrating that because, look, I made an intention and a declaration to be at a certain outcome result by a certain time, while being of service to others in terms of sharing what I know and what I've experienced and my knowledge and my wisdom, right? And so I'm open to however that unfolds. I have an offer, I have created a product, a service, and I know who I want to serve. But if I'm not hung up on the fact that my results have to come through that, it can be even through a book, I have no idea. So here I am, flowing with what flows easily without resisting the process, and allowing for things to unfold. So that's been this week's outer operating system actions and some results and so on. And so please make sure that you're subscribed and stay updated with this journey, and share this video with somebody else that you think may benefit from what you're hearing from in this channel, in this particular series. And make sure you're here next week, following on what is unfolding after my webinar on Monday. I'm going to be recording my video on Tuesday, so make sure you're here for week 3 updates. Until then, see ya.